Just how do you get to Australia? This is the big $100 question, I guess, these days. Very simple. First of all, for my company, I definitely need your CV. There's no question. We need that CV to go through the process. This is the beginning of the process. We finally come up with what we call a pre-assessment. We have a look at it. We talk to you about, yes, you can, you are eligible for Australia. Once you're eligible for Australia, or not, if you're not, we'll tell you what you need to do to be eligible. But assuming you're eligible for Australia, there are two ways to get to Australia. One is via the migration process itself, which is the way the government would like it to be. It's a slow process that we've been through. But the other way is go down the job route, and this is the future for Australia. There are something like, right now, 250,000 jobs in Australia right now. Over the next 3 years, we're looking at 2.5 million jobs. Quite amazing. So when you think of 2.5 million jobs, there's something happening in Australia. It's got a very small population. We're a small country under a massive growth area. The Asian Pacific Rim, China, India, all these boom economies we all hear about. Australia sits right on the bottom of that, right on the rim. Very close working partners. So it's important to understand 2.5 million people will be required to service Australia's demands. The quickest way to Australia is a job offer. That's pretty obvious. Someone offered you a job, and this has been traditionally the way. Recruitment companies in Australia or in the UK would particularly offer you a job in Australia. 12 weeks, you're living the dream. So that's a quick entry. But we always say to people, look, that's a temporary visa. It's got conditions to it, which is fine. It's got you to Australia, you're working, your dream is complete, if you like. But our role is to convert that to a PR, to a permanent resident visa, as quick as possible. And this is what you need to understand. We've got clients who phone us all the time. Been in Australia for 3.5 years. Got one the other day who's been there for 3.5 years on a sponsorship, and wants to know if you can convert it to a permanent visa, or do you have to wait till 4 years? I mean, my goodness. I mean, someone hasn't advised that chap properly. If you're entering Australia on a 457 visa, the job offer that is, it's a temporary visa. You must understand that. And as I was saying, we've got a client right now that's been out there for 3.5 years on this temporary visa, when in actual fact, at the outside, he should have been 24 months, he should have been getting a PR visa, permanent resident. This is important because you will be paying a high price on a short-term 457 visa. So it is important to understand as to why we like you to have your skills also formally assessed, because that way we can approach the employer or offer you another job position that will take you into PR within 6 to 8 months. Would you believe it? With your skills formally assessed, an employer offer, and the employer approving what we call an employer nomination scheme or an RSMS, you could be in Australia in 6 to 8 months. It's that good. So it's absolutely critical that you talk to your agent about how quick can you be a permanent resident of Australia. Traditionally with a job offer, the recruitment company used to basically have total control of it. They would actually say to you, look, we have a job for you in Australia. They would sign you up, away you go. They would be your employer. Those days have gone. We're now dealing with the employer direct. This is the smart way for migration, but it's not so easy. The employers a lot of the times really don't understand what migration is all about. Again, why you need to have an agent on board. Even if you've got a job secured or you've got a friend in Australia offering you a job, you need to understand that it's not so simple anymore. The employer has got to be approved. That's the first thing that happens. The employer must be approved. He must have what's called a labour agreement in place. This is to protect you, and this is the important one of the changes in the new migration profile for 2011 plus. So it's a good thing. So again, don't think of Australia as a quick fix to your situation here. Make sure that you get everything cleared, understand migration, so you don't be a victim. We do not want to see you returning to the UK or wherever you're coming from because you haven't got that migration program right from the outset. Don't even start to pack your bags until your agent says yes, you'll be just fine. Not for the first year, not for the second year, but for a long term, for the long term. You must know that you're getting a PR visa at the end of it. That's most important. Another question that pops up quite often in the process on a 457 or any visa for that matter, but particularly the 457 because it's a quick process, medicals. Yes, there's changes have been made. For most, no, you don't really need a medical before you go. The employer may request it because remember, the 457 is a 2-year temporary visa. But once you go to the permanent aspect of migration, that is when you most definitely will have to have your medicals done. So there is a requirement in there for medicals, but each case can be different. Each employers themselves might require you to have a medical before you leave. Not too often, but the medical thing is an issue. Again, talk to your agent about the migration aspect of medical, because when you get to 2 years on a temporary visa, you need to know that when you get down that far that you'll be okay for your medicals. Most important, get that clear before you go. Another one of those little things in migration that you should be well aware of. There have been many changes to migration. One of them is the English test. Absolutely compulsory now. So you've got to look at this and how it's going to affect your particular visa application. They've got different levels. What you come into is a professional level and there's a skilled level. And rather than sort of break it down here, what you need to do is be aware that the English test is compulsory for most, and we have to look at that and show you how to get through it. It's not rocket science, it's not difficult. There are a number of elements within the English test that are important to understand as to why you must consult your migration agent about this. Most important, before we take you on as a client, you will be given the ELTS information. You can actually get a disc these days, $25 thereabouts, I'm not too sure the price, but it's actually a process to educate you about what you need to do. You certainly need, for skilled, you certainly need 6 or 7 level, and professional certainly 8. It's not so straightforward, but once, like anything else, once you understand it, you'll be fine. So when you go to do this test for the English, you must be prepared. So give us a call, we'll talk it through with you. Happy to send you out a brochure, information about the English test. It's so important, very important for migration these days. Without it, you're going nowhere. The English test is part of the process. The first part we always do is get your skills assessed. Once you've got your skills assessed, we know we can take you into migration, and this is part of the migration process, is the English test itself. You can do it tomorrow if you want to, but there's certain days they do it on, you've got to book ahead and things like that. Not so straightforward and just saying, look, I'll do an English test online. No, it's a face-to-face thing. This is important. You will be having to go to a hall or a college or a facility somewhere in the UK to sit down and do an English test. It's not so straightforward, not online. It's more to it than that. So give us a call, we'll walk you through what is required for your English test.